So, based on this last episode, we're going to go deep into it here. We definitely need a coffee together. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you joining us. We're a very introspective channel over here. We go into life design. We go into thinking of things differently. We really want to be very adaptable. We want to be flexible with our lifestyles, our ways of helping ourselves become more healthier and creative. We want to be deep in our relationships. And so I really pride myself on, I'm probably a lot better at relationships than social media, to be honest with you. And I feel like that's a strength, even though social media, there's a huge strength in skill. And so we're going to get deep into this one because there's some things that I want to really cover here and touch on, and really I want to go deeper into the multifaceted nature of life. I love touching on this throughout the year, being multifaceted, and I'm really opening myself up to new experiences and revisiting experiences in life. And I do this throughout the year, different phases, different times of the year, because I know that it's a healthier approach to be more aware of things and more open to things. And so when I really got into serious work on Life is Our Reality, whether it's the podcast, the YouTube, the TikTok, even the Facebook in the very beginning stages where it was just Facebook, just Twitter, and just Zello, Clubhouse, Dabble, Clubhouse to be exact, VO Rail, all those places, my Telespace, even in the very beginning, Blink Nation, very beginning Clango, very beginning, all of this where it was either pre-internet or early internet or a balance of both. I had a lot of different views and a lot of different points of view, opinions, experiences that pointed to different things not being the end-all be-all. And so a lot of that had to do with, and I'll touch on this and go deeper into it, a lot of that had to do with even the blind services and all of the experience. Because, I do this in my community. I'm very aware and in touch with my community. I'm not perfect about it. I don't have the perfect understanding of it. But as far as going through it with you guys, I'm definitely going through it with you guys, right? The whole experience. And I don't make this channel about blindness, really, but I make it about dealing with being in a minority, whatever that looks like for you. And I make it about being different and being aware of your difference as a strength with your own abilities and even your own needs as it pertains to life design and creating in your own life. And so I'm really not somebody to go to with tips on how to deal with Division of Blind Services, because a lot of that I feel like was a huge waste of my own time. But some of it was not. Some of it, dealing with them, was giving me skills, not home management skills, not cooking and cleaning. I learned that from just being in my husband's family and making them my own family. I didn't necessarily feel like blind services taught me that. They did teach me what the working world was like. They taught me what an office setting is like, just based on my persistence and abilities and going higher up into the ladder and kind of jumping hoops, if you will. I had to be very aggressive in order to even get that kind of experience. They were really not going to give me any kind of experience. I had to really go to the higher up legal team in the department, knowing that I was wasting a lot of my time and being a mom at the same point and really needing something out of it. It wasn't playtime. It wasn't let's try something new in life. It wasn't let's experiment. Let's practice what it might be like being an adult. This is I'm an adult living life, and I'm having to spend a lot of time on blind services hoping to get somewhere. I can't just play school anymore. I have to actually go work and do these things. Because my husband was already getting online work from home, and that wasn't the kind of work that I was familiar with at the time of where to go specifically. And so, there was a lot of like hidden things in that has to do with like logistics, companies only being able to hire somebody who knew where to go and find them and all that kind of stuff. And so he was really cool about doing that. Plus, I really needed the time in life where I knew that we were making it and we could get some local resources as well. It was like a resource gathering thing with blind services. I still do that. And my distance learning, my favorite organization for the blind, you guys, if you really follow me and know it, is Hadley, because they are very all walks of life kind of a system. They're very pre-internet in distance learning through the mail. They know that in person is not always the answer for a lot of us, especially now, like with working or with being a parent, or like if you really have an actual life, being in your adult life, or you have circumstances in your life where you need the online space to learn. They will help you with that. They will give you chance after chance. I've been able to come and go as I've pleased with Hadley, leave and come back, and been able to they don't hold it against me when I've changed my mind, left without any notice at all, and then came back and said, I want to learn this. They don't tend to hold that against you. They're just there for you to walk in and out of. It's not and they do have history on you and your learning style and the classes you've tried and everything else. And you might have to explain some things if you go into the same class again. But as far as having a place for you to learn, they're not going to hold it against you. They're just going to say life happens and you left and now you're back, years later, months later, whatever. I've done it multiple times just throughout the adult life, just throughout adulthood. So that's definitely one organization that I would recommend for the blind. And hadleyhelps.org is their new and upgraded website. They've been around since the 1920s, and it's a good start if you just need some resources and education in learning Braille technology, if you want to learn cleaning, if you want to learn, if you find that stuff valuable to learn through a specialized blindness organization, they would be realistic because you'd be in your own home. You wouldn't be at a fake school or anything like that. Another organization, a couple of them that kind of fit together, they tend to be opposite in a lot of their views, but they fit together, are the NFB and ACB, and they give you a lot of different networking opportunities, and you get a lot of resources as well. And they have a lot of programs that are either hidden or you have to find, and they have a lot of different resources, and they do run independent living centers, or they're a part of independent living centers, or independent living centers go to them for resources as well if you are doing that. And so that is also things that I do tend to do throughout the year. The other thing to note about that is I'm not actually fully against, despite what I've said on this channel or on the podcast or in my music, I'm not fully against independent living centers. I think it's better than nothing if you're trying to get out of the house. If you find yourself stuck with your parents or stuck with your family in any way, your siblings. Some people find themselves stuck living with their grandparents, and they have to either go to a blindness center or a permanent disability center where they can kind of live. Otherwise, they'd be homeless, and they find themselves needing a place that facilitates a lot of things. I don't agree with a lot of the premise behind not having the real world and not being given kind of the information of how the real world works in order for you to have your own rights and have your own finances and manage your own money and things like that. Some of these organizations tend to have too much say over your finances, but if you feel like you really need a home or you really need a facility or even just a temporary year-long school, you have to get out of your parents' house I credit the Blind Center for helping have a space for my husband and I to meet. Like, I'm not exactly stupid. I know that we personally could have met other places, having enough experience traveling and things like that, but it gave us a safe space that was real, that proved that we were both blind, that we could meet at. It proved that he was blind. It proved that I was blind and knew where to go, and we could meet. So I credit the Blind Centers for starting people out, but at this point I think that it is only to get people who are newly blind or who are newly adulted just out from under their families. They still don't quite do enough in a way that says that we really care about your overall permanent independence, because a lot of times people end up having to, if they're not independent enough, they haven't found a resources. They're not going to help you find a place of your own that's permanent. If they do help you find a place of your own, it's a center with multiple disabilities, and it's going to be a place that's going to be like you would live here temporarily while you're getting an education, and then you'd probably want to find somewhere safer to live. It's going to be one of those things. If you really needed it bad enough, it's not going to be like we're going to help you find a permanent place to live. It's going to be a little place in a bad area that you're going to kind of maybe live, and it's going to help in that way. But it's not necessarily, as far as that goes, going to be perfect. But having said that, I credit it for being there at the time when there's not a lot of choices. Now there's starting to become a lot more choices with mobile AI, with ChatGPT and independent living and things like that are there. So I don't necessarily think that this kind of stuff is bad if it gives you an opportunity to leave your family home. It's really better than doing nothing at a certain point. But it is only temporary. And I don't want to see people put too much of their time and life into it, expecting that they are going to just have a life waiting for you outside of your family's home. That's kind of the mistake that I made when I was younger. I put too much of my livelihood into advocating and being a part of it for myself, and then I wasn't able to really figure out what I connected with, like, truthfully, in what I wanted to do at that time. The only way I was able to figure that out was the knowing what was coming and knowing what I'm good at, which is the internet, and knowing that building relationships is what I'm actually best at, aside from anything else. So, with all that being said, as I'm good at relationships, the very rare, long-lasting kind of relationships, not so much the society-built groups, it's because of I'm not really so good at environments that are limited, which kind of shows why I'm actually better at freelance work than even your typical business running that's required, or your typical office work, or your typical working for a boss or 9 to 5 or anything like that. So what that looks like is just like kind of going in and finding work that is needing me, and it's surveys, but then it can go to a ton of other things, including just different parts of tech, most likely, and including even just, I include education in that, because that's teaching yourself and kind of being involved in a class or being involved in others. I'm not even against that per se, but again, I'm really just against the putting your whole life into something, trying to replace not having anything with these centers, trying to replace your lack of relationships, trying to replace your lack of freedom with a center like this. And part of that has a lot to do with the way that I might have been raised as well, and I don't take that lightly. I don't think I was aware of that fully before, but even having a family who was divorced taught me a lot about travel that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. It taught me a lot about, like, doing more for myself. and learning about different places in the country and different parts of society and things that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. But it depends on the type of divorced family that you have, and it depends on the type of income bracket that you're in life and things like that, because many people can also come from families that are divorced that are really well off, that they don't get to learn anything. And so you put your whole life into a center, a blindness school, even as an adult, and you're turned back into a kid as soon as that program is over. You don't really know. Okay, it's like you got some skills, maybe you've improved a little bit on something. Maybe you've learned to cook a meal. Maybe you've learned to, use a different cane technique or even like that. And that's cool. I actually think you have to have some kind of start somewhere in life, but that's all it's going to be, is a start, a little bit of a resource to divide your life up into newer phases. Maybe some people will go back after their life's been a little stagnant for some years, just to kind of get some refreshers and just to feel like they're doing something. And that's where I don't necessarily see
pause button.
That is wrong.
Mic is on button.
What I do see is, again, this whole like putting your whole life into it. And so this has a lot to do with religion. I will find myself being able to separate spirituality and religion, being able to separate the Bible from what everybody wants it to be from what it actually is, whether you love the Bible or whether you hate the Bible. And being able to understand that religion can serve something different. Spirituality is serving something entirely separate. Or religion serves something that spirituality does not. Spirituality serves something that religion just can't. But that doesn't mean that religion can't work if you're using it as a community resource, if you're using it to serve others in some kind of way. And you got to really be understanding of that your spirituality and your experience spiritually are not going to fit what the church says that you are going to be. And they're not going to fit necessarily your ideas, but that you're serving your community or you're gaining from your community, things like that. And so I will find myself throughout the year trying new or revisiting old religions and spiritualities, practices in spirituality, and then communities in religion throughout the year. And sometimes it will happen where there's more times I'm within church more often, and then more times I'm just kind of solitude and spirituality more often. And other times I'm kind of balancing both and kind of doing it as needed and not being entirely rigid one way or another. Because a lot of us who are really serious about spirituality and are very non-traditional, everybody gets so threatened about the church. But then you may be very, very left on a lot of issues, but then who's stepping in to help the homeless people? It's not going to be you. It's going to be the church. You don't have all the funds to save all the homeless people. You don't have all the funds or all the resources to help people out of ruts or bad hurricane disasters or any of that. So you can't necessarily, something I've had to really outgrow, like we can't necessarily rebel so much that we hate the church completely, because ultimately, kind of like school in a certain sense, I can say where I don't agree with college and I don't agree with the sort of blind services or the disabled services, because you can make this about all disabilities where there's different things that work and different things that don't. But at the same point, to sit there and actually have a discussion where you're cutting out all of these services and saying that all school is bad, what about the trade schools? What about the beauty salons that teach students? What about the tech schools, the technical schools? What about schools that promote trade school as a goal or teach kids trade as an option? There's always nuance. There's always different options. And so even in social media, like I talked earlier in the last episode, and it kind of prompted me to do a coffee with you, because what I realized is like, holy shit, it's really starting to hit me how valuable I am as a fan, just as a fan. And then it makes me think of all the millions of other people like you who feel like we owe our fandom to our friends, to the people we run into, to business colleagues, to even just the people themselves that are high profile. And there are people that really deserve that are high profile, that deserve, like, we buy their books or we comment on their posts, we share their posts all the time. They probably deserve it because they are going into things, talking about things that we find useful, helpful, deep. Nobody else is talking about it, and maybe they've really acted very much with dignity in social media or in business. But then there are others where, oh, well, they're my friend, I have to be a fan. If I'm not a fan, I'm not being a very good friend. Or, well, I'm their friend, I'm going to continue to show them support. And I believe that is definitely a thing. But people don't value that as much as you think they do. They think that they are so good. And I've been guilty, like when I first started in social media and got really big, you really think that you're so good until you realize, like, this really means a lot when you're connecting relationships together. And you're doing a lot of it as an act of friendship, and you're not really focused on what you're creating a lot of the time, unless you really are in agreement with that person. It should be truthful towards being in agreement with that person. But what a lot of people do, and I've just seen it on this other side now, is really strange. A lot of people will pretend to be your friend in social media. And it doesn't mean that, like, once in a while somebody misses a call or a text, or once in a while somebody cannot meet up or visit or do anything, or even have like a convention with you or any kind of long distance meetup. It doesn't mean they're bad. Like, sometimes if you really have an explanation with people, you really feel like you're on a good friendship level with somebody, you can explain all kinds of stuff. And as long as you're not making excuses, some people have family that they have to take care of. Some people have a lot going on. So as long as you feel in good terms with somebody, that you're talking with them privately, keeping in touch with them, things like that, then obviously you're going to, like, let things go and you're going to understand different things. But it's when you have people that are pretending to be your friend and they're pretending to support your stuff because it's like a follow for follow relationship. They want you to support their stuff. They want you to like their shit, so they're going to like your shit because they know you're very kind. And they have this feeling like that's how it works. It's really not. It's more about what the person is saying. It's more about what the person is believing. But what I will say is, when it comes to this, you have your relationships where if you've interacted with someone personally, they can really fuck up that interaction with you to the point where you're like, no, I'm good. I get this feeling that you're starting to become entitled to my shares and my likes. You're starting to become entitled to my follows. You're starting to become entitled to my time and interest on you. When really, who the fuck are you really? Like, who the fuck are you? You're somebody in my community. We don't really know each other, that kind of thing. Or, you're somebody that happens to be within my similar interests, but we don't really know each other that much. And when you get to interacting personally, and I've seen this outside the blind community as well, with people personally, where you're like, okay, how are they really? Like, you've spent some time with them and you're like, are you on social? Are you out there? Like, obviously you're doing this and you're doing that and you're being creative, right? How are you really? Are you true to who you are online? Are you as nice as you seem offline, right? And a lot of times the answer is no. a lot of times people act sideways towards you, and they act weird, and they can't answer a question. Suddenly it's too awkward. Like, it's kind of funny how this happens. And I like to see that with people. Are you really who you claim to be? Are you really as kind as you claim to be? Why do you feel you need to claim church when I really could give a fuck less about that? It's more about your character. It's more about you as a person. I don't care if you go to church or not. That's not really a part of my purpose for being here. That's not really a part of my, like, I'm not really into religion like that, but I will fuck with the community and religion if it's a good community, if the church is good and it's proven itself to be a caring place that's not judgmental, that's actually pretty open, you'll find me there. Like, I'm not scared of it. I don't feel like because I'm a very spiritual person, I'm going to burn in a church, because I know I have good intentions, things like that. And that's what I want us to get over. You don't have to think that Jesus is the exact same person or spirit that your preacher thinks that Jesus is, or whatever. You just have to be open to community, obviously, if you're going to be somewhere, and all of that. You don't even have to have the same opinion about gays that your preacher might, just to uphold the traditional values or whatever. You might have different values that are true for you, and you're not trying to serve values that give you a shiny label that you're trying to fit, because all of this is really real versus fake at the end of the day. Are you a real person or a fake person? I don't really care if you think you're going to heaven or if you're doing something because you're going to heaven. It's not my job to even, I don't even know what that's even like to say that, because we're all just doing the best we can, figuring it out, and we all have our own spiritual shit that we're doing, right? So I could care less that you have this guilt about going to heaven or not going to heaven, because if that means that you're mistreating people around you, if you're mistreating me, I don't really give a shit. Like, I'm not going to be in the same room as you in heaven. I'm going to be in a different room. I'm going to make sure we're avoiding each other, because if that means you're just an asshole, then you're an asshole. And, you know, you might have got let in by some kind of merit or some kind of like job position or something to that effect. So kind of where we're at, really. I'm kind of doing this because, to be honest with you, I'm balancing out life here. And even some of the most successful people that are high profile, Gary Vee, Amy Landino, people that, like, you know, Matt D'Avella, people that are very into, you know, Sarah Dietschy, people that are very into all of this, right, have their times where they're head down, and they might even talk about posting on social media and how important it is to express yourself all the time. Even they have their times where they're focused in on their work and they're living a private life. And even so, I would hope that they do, even if they didn't admit to doing that, because that's actually healthier to do. And I've started to see that this last year as we've went on a diet for health reasons, as we've explored different things, as we've gotten in touch with things are not always what we think they are in a lot of this, and things like that. Then we come to a place of like, I could literally like take time and be private and really focus on what I need to focus on. I've been working a lot more the last couple weeks and doing a lot more, and I just love that. And so that last episode, I talked about all of this as it pertains to, like, you know, I've seen some of you that I've known personally get thousands of views on your videos. And I'm like, okay, well then, you know, you've taken my advice or you've learned from other people or whatever. I think that's cool. That's actually made me happy. And I would smile and I would start to really think. But then I remember, but like, some of you, it's all about the views and it's how you've treated the people around you. And like, I really don't get a lot of views. I don't care. But I would treat people better than you would. Or I would really take people into account better than a lot of you would. Like, I'm not perfect, but the treatment that I have towards others matters to me more than like I can put out a video and some hashtags and get views where I still have a shitty life. I still treat people like shit or whatever the case. There's a few of you that I've really had to learn whether you're blind or sighted. There's a couple of you blind, a couple of you sighted that I've seen that where I'm like, and I've known you in person or I've known you personally. We've had some time that I've seen how you really are when you're not on social media. And I'm just like, good. I don't have to be, I'm not even obligated to take a lot more time or be a fan because I've actually known who you really are. Whereas maybe I could enjoy being a fan if I didn't know who you were personally, you know? And it's sad, but the reality is some people really are out here wanting fame. And I've done a certain taste of fame I've gotten. It was enough of a taste for me. It might not have been very huge of a taste, but it was enough of a taste for me where I'm like, no, because it's not based on anything that I'm about, really. But I love the creativity of social media, and I love the platforms and the opportunity to create, but I don't love social media more than relationships. And there are certain things I put higher on my values. Does that mean I'm putting social media on a lower value? No, not at all. And I don't blame social media for my problems or for the world's problems or for parenting or any of that. I don't think that. I think it's kind of like just as bad as blaming music back in the day or TV or phone usage or anything like that. But I don't value social media more than how I treat people. Some of you understand exactly where I'm coming from, and we're cool, and I share your stuff because I've gotten to know you as a person, and you are who you say you are. I can feel it. I just know it. You've talked to me privately, and so I kind of know that you're not like making shit up. You're not pretending to be anybody that you are, that you're not. You're not, you don't have like a person that you are online and a person that you are offline. You're not like split up. You're not wearing a mask. I can tell. I'm not exactly stupid, right? And so that's where that was coming from. It's like, it felt really good to get off my chest too, because it's like, I have a lot more going for me in my life than the views I'm getting. And the reason why I'm not getting views is because I don't have anything to sell. So I'm not putting a lot of I'm not motivated really to put the time that it takes. And I'm here to admit it. I'm motivated enough to get my word out there, to get kind of like what I'm about out there right now at this point. I've done it for years. So it's a pattern. It's become a pattern to just create, get my music out there. But I'm not putting time into how many views I get. I know that it's become important in the interest graph and everything. I don't really care about it. I care more about what am I actually saying? What am I learning that I'm then able to teach you? And how am I teaching it? That's what I care about. And am I learning in a way? Am I experiencing life in a way that is going to then be teachable to you? But I'm not motivated to have a consistent schedule on any of this because this is not my main work. But I do it not because I'm a saint or anything either. I selfishly really love creating. It's been a hobby for a long time, and I don't know when that will ever change, but if it never changes and it's always kind of a hobby and I always just kind of create, but I have a wonderful private life that you guys know nothing about, or if you do know me in person and you do know something about, and that life is so much better than what I show you in social, and it had no need for social media, I can really look at myself. And I've thought about this over this last year as I've changed my relationships a lot. Not my main relationships, not my family, but the more distant family, the more distant people that have chosen to be distant, things like that. I've changed those relationships in life, and it's really made me think, have I really been doing this because I've really wanted social media that bad? Have I been really into getting my voice out there? There's nothing wrong with that. But have I let that take over my relationships? And I'm like, no, that's not actually it. that's more about, and that's actually when I was real young, like really, really young. I did let, pre-internet, I did let some of my work in music take over my relationship, and then I might not have been very attentive in that relationship. So I admit to doing that in the very far past, where I can kind of like pinpoint when I was doing that versus when I'm not. Now it's been more about a real life and stability and community, working together and growing and that kind of thing. And I kind of knew where some of you have wanted fame, you've wanted social media, you've wanted views, you've hung out on TikTok more because, hey, I actually get more views on here than other places. Huh? I kind of like this. Yeah, you like TikTok now, don't you, bitch? Like, it's funny because you love the views that much, I can tell. With me, what's kind of weird is I love TikTok for the community. When I got a lot of views that were more than I get now, I kind of stepped back. I'm like, I don't know how comfortable I am with this. Even though I love TikTok, I'm like, this is kind of crazy for me. I don't know if this is exactly what I wanted. And then I adjusted my TikTok use to engagement, where it's more about talking in comment sections, talking on other videos, DMing and getting to know people outside of TikTok. That's what I want. Not a bunch of views. That doesn't mean anything except that somebody got something out there. Like, I don't care about that. I thought I cared about it, though. I really thought I cared about it. I thought that was important to me. And that might be why I kept the relationships I did, because I was motivated to share their message, because I thought it was shared with me. I thought we were sharing the same sort of growth. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't actually what I want. It's kind of funny. And then what I realized is, because all this is an interest graph, their interest graph on TikTok was not matching my interest graph. So I wasn't seeing what they were posting anyway, whether they were on or not. And so part of that had to do with people and their actions as it pertains to working relationships. And part of that had to do with what that means in an algorithm, and which is like, who are we and what is our interest and who is our audience, is what the algorithm kind of is. It's not going to be a customer if you're not selling anything, unless you feel like maybe the audience is kind of the customer. Then you could say the algorithm is the customer for sure. Do I want to do social media for a career? No, I really don't. I think some of you do, and I think that's cool. And I actually am enjoying being in your communities and getting to know you guys, because it is who you are. Some of you are very authentic and truthful with it, and you're doing what you believe in and you're helping people. So to that, I say that's cool. That's really motivating and inspiring. And I'm out here doing that, but I'm doing it more on like, I'm kind of using these as kind of this whole thing as a platform. This whole Life is Our Reality, whatever app I'm recording on, whatever app you're watching or listening to me on. I'm doing this to learn and to engage. And if I really was putting effort into views, I would learn more about hashtags and thumbnails and analytics and all that kind of crap. I don't really care. I just care about getting it out there. And if it helps like one person that consistently watches or listens, then it helps one person. I don't care. And I still feel fulfilled in life, because it's not like I'm even selling anything for profit. When I work for profit, it's based on the user experience that I'm sharing with somebody. It's not based on social media necessarily. I'm not using this to build up clients or anything. I don't have that kind of pressure that a lot of you have, or to build up some kind of education. A lot of you are very pressured to be the education for teaching people about blindness, or teaching people about disability, or teaching people about autism. I don't have that kind of pressure on myself. I don't put that kind of pressure on myself. I don't care to do that, because we're all multifaceted. And so with all of this, like revisiting different concepts, including church, for more of those meaningful communities and less about the spirituality. One thing that I can go really deep on, even in future episodes, because this is getting long, but I can go really deep on the fact that the Bible is not the answer to the universe. It is there to, it's kind of there reflecting on what's happening in society. It's like the spiritual collective, the voice of the spiritual collective, but it's, and maybe some experiences, but it's not the answer to life on other planets or underneath the sea or different species or different universes or any of that has been kind of like questioned or anything like that. It's not that. But it also, none of the church or the Bible or anything takes away from that as experience. It doesn't take away from your spirituality, from the ghosts in your life, from the experiences that you have. It doesn't take away from your craft or anything like that. And neither does church, but it's there for as a community. Like I said, you don't have the funding to consistently help homeless people or to consistently help anybody. So for you to hate a church or to hate churches, you're saying that you should be the one doing it, or that, your programs or your money itself or your taxes should be going towards helping these things. Now, I also disagree with churches in a lot of ways and think that a lot of them are very phony about this, and they will do tax-free things to get a bigger tax cut. And, the complete extreme right wing, I don't agree with at all, especially when it comes to like being judgmental. And same with the left wing. There's a complete extreme left wing that can be judgmental just as much and pushy just as much. So what it really comes down to is, and same with the blindness services that we are talking about, I think what I'm getting into, and somebody was asking on TikTok about this, and it really made me stop. It's like, you've been working for other people. It kind of humbled me a little bit. It's like, you've been working for other people. They're like, you've been doing all this work for other people. You've been like really helping them in a lot of ways. You've been kind of out for them, but you've never really thought about you. And I'm like, I can think about the past and how the past has screwed up these organizations for my family and me and things like that. Or I can think about like, how have these things grown? We might find ourselves in some of these blindness organizations to find that the blind services has grown for the better because of the struggles that us and other people have been through. Maybe they've realized they need to change and modernize and have some more different services and programs throughout the state, throughout state-run services, or, different things. Maybe the centers have realized they needed to grow, and all of that kind of stuff. And I feel like some of that had already been influenced by a lot of us in our community when we did get close and we went to meetings and supported each other. Some of the stuff at the Blind Center grew as a result of our influences as a kind of the class we were in at the time in like 2010 or whatever. And because of that, it did make me rethink a little bit that, maybe they don't all have an agenda. So, and same with like the libraries have a lot of different programs and services. I do think that it's nice to buy books from authors. I know that's been a hot topic. I do love buying my books most of the time, but there's nothing like getting access to a book and reading it. I do think it would be cool to see libraries sell books and give you the opportunity to support your authors though. And then they can stay funded. Like, I'm not really against adding a little bit of finance, but the libraries are also there to provide free access to education. And so I'm not trying to minimize that at all, but let's see, where are we on time? Because I did really need to do this coffee catch up with you. Yeah, we're at about 45 minutes. So I'm going to end this. I know my audio got a bit messed up, but I'm going to end this and really listen back to this and see how I want to post this exactly. And I will continue to keep you posted on kind of what's going on, but I'm also really, really happy to have this time to grow as we've made a lot of life changes. And I want to be wrong in certain areas. I want to understand things that maybe I've misunderstood. There are some things that I'll never agree with. I'll never agree with like charging people high profits for access to Braille or access to information, low and mainstream pricing all the way, but I don't think we should have to pay specialized pricing for specialized products. It should all just be kind of integrated into what we're doing at this point now. And, you know, I have very high values and high standards, but also I'm willing to be open-minded to see where maybe some things have changed for the better. Getting a guide dog is great if you need that start in life. Going to a blind center or a disabled center or an independent living skills center is great if you need that start in life. But remember, it is just a start at the end of the day. It's not going to be your permanent life. You're not safe to say, okay, I'm out of here, I'm leaving, and I never have to come back. That's not true. Like once the program is over, you could be stuck going back there to stay or going into an even worse situation where you're stuck, but then you can be easily checked on or targeted or things like that, like I've seen with people, and easily lose some of your rights, even if you are on your own, because people are targeting you. Like I've seen that, and I don't want you to make that same mistake that we made when we were younger and all of that, because we really didn't have a choice either, and we didn't know what to do. Because of not having the internet at the time. The internet's provided a lot. Apps have provided a lot of function that we take for granted, like with ChatGPT and the video option, for example, things that weren't invented yet. And so, plus our mindset was different. We weren't exactly always sober. That's a whole nother thing, but that's where I really just want you to understand how important it is to really think about what you want. And don't let me discourage you. If you have state services that are really, really good in your area, I definitely think you should do them. And if they provide you something like a permanent solution for helping you grow your life, and they're not just collecting money out of your struggle to get out of your parents' house and then pushing out the door, if they're doing more than that, then I think that's cool. Then I think that is worth your time. But just don't sign your whole life into hoping that a year at a blind center or 6 weeks at a guide dog school is going to fix everything and be your end-all be-all answer, and then you're never going to have problems with your family being up your ass again. That's not true. So consider that. Same with churches. There is no perfect church, and you're going to maybe be in rooms where you disagree. But if you can find that community where you work together, it may not even matter. And so that's kind of like where I'm at. I don't want to be so set in stone and so rigid with the values that I have that I'm not allowed to experience other things. And that's where I'm at. I want to be open to experiencing life and taking life further. And that can mean that we in society work together in different ways, different communities, different spaces. So I hope that this episode helps. I didn't really expect to post this much. I'm probably going to be posting a lot more music and different parts of life, different shows, things like that. Probably less of these. I don't know. Sometimes these really help you guys. Sometimes I get a lot of good feedback on these. And I've always enjoyed getting really deep into this stuff. So, but either way, balance with everything, including social media, including creativity, including work. I have to remind myself not to overwork either. And then I have to remind myself to focus on the work that is actually going to incentivize me to work. So that's a whole other thing. But balance as always. And I'll talk to you in the next one. Take care of yourself, take care of your life, take care of each other. And there you go. Sorry about the audio. But anyway, thanks for tuning in.